All right, so this week, you've all sent in a ton of stuff about understanding fast-spoken English.
Yeah, it's a popular topic.
Yeah, and I gotta say, this is a really fascinating mix
It is.
of materials. We've got like formal language learning guides, we've got transcripts of real conversations,
That's very fake.
pretty much everything. And so our mission today in this deep dive is to give you some tools
Yeah, maybe some tools.
to actually deal with those rapid fire conversations in English and really get past that feeling of being totally lost.
I think it's something that a lot of people experience. You
Absolutely.
feel really good about the English that you've learned. Maybe you've been studying for a while and you're using structured methods.
Right.
But then you encounter a native speaker,
Right.
and all of a sudden it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
what just happened?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's that shift, from scripted or carefully enunciated English to the real deal.
Yeah, you're so used to that slower pace.
Right.
Like you're saying, those scripted materials, textbooks, tutorials.
Yes, TED Talks, where everything is nice and neat.
Right.
But then you go out into the world, you're in a coffee shop, you're at a party,
All right.
and it's a whole different ball game.
Totally. And it's like what we're getting at today is that it's not just about knowing more vocabulary.
Right.
Right? It's not about, having the perfect grammar.
It's about the patterns.
It's about the patterns.
Yeah. And the cultural stuff, too.
Yes.
The rhythm.
The rhythm, the flow, the music of the language.
Exactly.
So let's jump in. One of the things that stood out to me in what you all sent is this idea that scripted content can only take you so far.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a funny thing to think about because on the one hand, of course, you need those building blocks.
You need the structure.
You need to learn the grammar,
Yeah,
the
that's it.
vocabulary.
You need to know what the words mean.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But one of the sources made this really interesting point about how language learning materials often present English in this super organized way. And that's great for foundation, but then you get into a real conversation and it's not like that at all.
Yeah. You're not reading a textbook
You're not reading a textbook.
out loud
Right.
to each other.
Exactly. And one of the sources even gave this great example contrasting, the super formal,
Okay.
may I inquire about the location of the nearest restroom
Oh, yeah. Classic.
versus what you're actually going to hear, which is something like, hey, where's the loo?
Right. And you're like, wait.
Right. Where's the what?
What's like, is this even the same language?
Exactly. And I think for a lot of learners, that could be a real shock
It is a shock.
because you spend all this time, studying these nice proper phrases and then bam, real life hits you. And it's like a
Yeah.
completely different code.
Right. And that's exactly what we're trying to crack today.
Yes.
That code of how do you bridge that gap?
Right.
And several of the sources talked about the importance of unscripted content.
Yes.
Like really getting into the nitty-gritty of how people actually speak.
Reality shows,
Reality shows,
podcasts.
podcasts like this one.
Exactly. Vlogs, anything where people are just being themselves.
Just talking,
Just talking,
not reading from a script.
not reading from a script. And I know it can be overwhelming at first
It can be.
because you tune in and you're like, I'm only getting maybe 20% of this.
Yeah. You feel like you're drowning a little bit.
Right. But as one of the sources said, it's all about consistency.
Right.
The more you expose yourself to it.
Like anything.
Like anything. It's like, think about listening to a new genre of music.
I love that analogy.
At first it's like, what is this?
What is this?
I don't even.
What are these sounds?
But then the more you listen, the more your ear starts to pick out the patterns, the rhythms.
Right.
You start to anticipate what's coming next.
And it's the same with language.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And one of the sources specifically mentioned travel vlogs because you get to hear those everyday conversations. People are out and about.
People are just being people.
People just being people. They're using slang. They're mumbling.
Yeah, not all perfectly enunciated.
Not perfectly enunciated. And they use this great phrase. He said, it's like training a muscle.
I love that.
Your brain is literally getting a workout.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, the stronger that muscle gets.
So it's not just the speed, though, right?
No.
It's not just that people are speaking quickly.
It's just the variety.
It's the variety of accents.
Exactly.
Another thing that came up a lot in the research.
Yeah, English is not a monolithic thing.
Right. It's not just one English.
It's not just one English.
Right.
You've got American English,
Right.
British English, Australian English,
Right.
all these regional variations.
And if you only ever listen to one type of English,
right.
you're going to be in for a rude awakening.
You're going to be so thrown off.
When you encounter someone from a different part of the world.
Absolutely. And one of the sources had this hilarious example with an Australian phrase.
Okay, I love Australian slang.
So they said, imagine hearing someone say, I reckon we should grab a papa.
A papa, what is that?
Right, it sounds like gibberish.
What's a papa?
But in Australian English, a papa is a pizza.
Okay.
So they're just saying, I think we should get a pizza.
I love it.
But if you're not familiar with that slang, you're going to be completely lost.
Yeah, and I think that highlights how important it is to expose yourself to different sounds.
Yes.
Different ways of speaking, different ways of phrasing things.
Absolutely. And it's not just about understanding different accents. It actually makes your comprehension overall so much better.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because your ear becomes more adaptable.
Oh, I see.
The more variety you listen to, the better you'll be able to process any kind of fast-spoken English.
That makes sense. Okay, so we're listening to different accents. We're embracing the chaos of unscripted English.
Yes.
But here's where it gets really cool. One of the sources talked about this idea of anticipation.
Oh, yes.
And how important that is for understanding fast English.
Right. It's almost like our brains are these prediction machines.
Why?
We're constantly trying to guess what's coming next.
Really?
Yeah, based on the context, based on what's already been said. And for native speakers, this is happening subconsciously.
Wow, so they're not even thinking about it.
They're not even thinking about it. They've just internalized the patterns of the language.
So they're always one step ahead.
Exactly. And the source gave these really clear examples.
Oh,
like
cool.
imagine someone starts a sentence with, I'm so hungry I could.
Eat a horse.
Right, exactly. Or grab a bite.
Right, or a sandwich.
Yeah, your brain automatically fills in those blanks.
Wow, and so how do we train ourselves to do that?
Right. Well, the cool thing is this isn't some magical native speaker ability.
Okay, good.
It's a skill that can be developed.
I like that.
Anyone can learn to do this. And the source even suggested this fun little game. Yeah, like when you're watching a video or a show, pause it
Okay.
and try to predict how the sentence is going to end.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right? It's like a little brain teaser.
Yeah, and it forces you to think ahead
Exactly.
in English.
And the more you do it, the better you get at anticipating those patterns.
And then it becomes less about understanding every single word.
Right.
It's more about following the flow.
The flow, yeah, the logical progression of ideas.
I love that.
And, if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yes.
anticipating the flow of a conversation also helps you become a better speaker.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because you start to internalize those rhythms and patterns.
I see.
So your own speaking becomes more natural and fluent.
So it's win-win.
It's a win-win.
Okay, so we're anticipating what might be said next.
Right.
But then what about when the words themselves
Yes.
sound different in fast speech?
Well, this is such a key point.
Yeah, like they change and blend together.
Exactly.
One of the sources talked about linked words and dropped sounds.
Right. And this is where it gets really tricky for a lot of learners.
It does.
Because you're listening for those individual words that you learned in a textbook.
Right.
But in rapid conversation, those words often merge together.
They become one.
They become one, and certain sounds might be dropped or reduced.
So give me an example.
Yeah, sure. So like the phrase, did you see it?
Okay.
In fast speech, it might sound more like, did you see it?
Oh, wow.
Or, I actually might become,
A heck?
I actually.
Okay, yeah, I can hear that.
Right. It's like the sounds are smushing together.
They are?
And one of the sources even mentioned how in some British English dialects, you have dropped H sounds.
Oh, yeah.
So in his becomes in is.
Right?
And it can sound like a completely different language
It can.
if you're not used to it.
So how do we deal with this?
Well, the key here is to actually mimic those patterns yourself.
What?
Yeah, it might feel weird at first,
Yeah.
but try saying what you doing instead of what are you doing?
Oh, would you do it?
Right? Or I don't know is I don't know. Yeah, and it might feel silly, but by physically producing those linked sounds, those dropped sounds,
Uh-huh.
your ear becomes much better at recognizing them when you hear them.
Oh, interesting.
It's like you're training your ear to decode the sounds of fast speech.
Okay, and I think this is a good point to just clarify for our listeners.
Yes.
We're talking about phonemes here,
Right.
which are the individual sounds that make up words.
Exactly.
So it's not that the words themselves are disappearing, it's just that the sounds are being compressed and connected.
Exactly. And the source also mentioned those filler phrases.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or at the end of the day.
Right. Right.
And these are really important to pay attention to as well.
Why is that?
Well, they might seem meaningless, but they actually serve a lot of purposes in conversation.
Okay.
They give the speaker time to think.
Uh-huh.
They signal emphasis. They help maintain the rhythm of the conversation.
Right.
So if you get too caught up in trying to understand every single word, you might miss the bigger picture.
Right, the flow.
The flow, exactly.
Okay, so we're starting to understand how sounds change in fast speech.
Right.
But let's talk about contractions and reductions, which
Yes.
are like a whole other level.
They're everywhere in fast-spoken English.
Everywhere.
Native speakers use them constantly, and one of the sources gave some great examples.
Okay.
Like, gimme that becomes gimme that.
Give me that.
Want to becomes wanna.
Right.
Going to becomes gonna.
Gonna.
And then even further reductions like let me becomes lemmy.
Me.
And trying to becomes Trina.
Trina. Oh, man.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. And I remember the first time I heard gimme, I was like, what?
Right.
What is that a gimme?
It sounds like a completely different word.
It does.
But once you realize it's just a shortened form of give me,
Uh-huh.
it starts to make sense.
Right. And one of the sources made a really good point about actually practicing these contractions yourself,
Oh, yeah.
even if it feels weird.
First, it's going to feel strange.
Yeah, but the more you say, I don't know, instead of I don't know, or want to go, instead of do you want to go,
Right.
the more your ear will start to pick them up.
Exactly. And you'll start noticing them everywhere.
In movies, in songs,
In podcasts, in everyday conversation.
that real life.
And it's like you've unlocked a secret code.
You're in the club.
You're in the club.
Okay, so we're getting better at recognizing how words change in fast speech.
Yes.
But what about when speakers don't even finish their sentences properly?
Ah, yes. The dreaded incomplete sentence.
This is a real thing.
It's a real thing, and it can be really frustrating for learners
It can.
because you're expecting that nice, neat subject-verb-object structure
Right, from the textbooks.
from the textbooks, but real conversation is messy.
Yeah,
People pause, they change direction mid-sentence, they leave things unsaid.
and they expect you to keep up.
Exactly, and one of the sources had this great contrast.
Okay.
They said, you might learn the sentence, I will attend the meeting tomorrow because it is important to discuss our goals.
Okay, a nice complete sentence.
The beautiful sentence.
Yes.
But in real life, it might sound more like, yeah, I'll go tomorrow. We got to talk goals.
Yeah, that's more like
Right.
shorter.
So much shorter.
He's so much short.
Oh, much less formal.
Exactly. And sometimes it's even more extreme.
Okay.
Like instead of, can we discuss this now? I think it's urgent.
Okay.
You might hear something like, so this thing, can we, urgent. Yeah,
Whoa.
right. It's like a jumble of phrases.
So how do we make sense of that?
Well, the key here, and this is what the source emphasized, is to focus on the overall flow.
Okay.
Pay attention to the speaker's tone of voice,
Ah.
their body language, the context of the situation.
So it's not just the words.
It's not just the words.
It's everything.
It's everything. And often those nonverbal cues can fill in the gaps.
Oh, interesting.
And it's worth remembering that even in our native languages,
Right.
we don't always speak in perfect sentences.
Right.
It's just a natural part of human communication.
Okay, so it's not just an English thing. It's not just an English thing. It's a people thing.
That makes me feel better.
Right.
Okay, so we're getting really good at this decoding process.
Yes.
We're listening for patterns. We're paying attention to the nonverbal cues.
We're mimicking those sounds.
We're mimicking the sounds. We're practicing those contractions.
Right.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle that we need to talk about.
And this is a big one.
Cultural context.
Yes, because understanding fast English is not just about the words themselves.
Right.
It's about understanding the culture behind those words,
The meaning.
the meaning, the nuances.
Yeah.
And this is where a lot of learners can really get tripped up
Oh, yeah.
because so many everyday phrases and idioms in English make absolutely no sense.
If you translate them literally.
If you translate them literally,
Right.
think about it's a piece of cake.
Okay.
What does that even mean?
If you're thinking about cake, it means nothing.
Right. It means something is easy.
Yeah.
But if you don't know that,
You're going to be confused.
you're going to be very confused.
Or break the ice.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, are we talking about a frozen lake?
Exactly. Why are we getting at a hammer?
It's not literal at all.
It's not literal. It just means to start a conversation.
To make people feel more comfortable.
Exactly. And one of the sources also talked about the role of humor.
Oh, yeah. Humor is huge.
Humor is huge.
And English.
And cultural references,
Yeah.
movies,
Music.
music, sports,
Childhood games.
childhood games,
Yeah.
all these things that are embedded in the culture.
And if you don't know those references,
Right.
you're going to miss the joke.
You're going to miss the joke, or you might even be offended.
Right. Or you're going to be like, why are they talking about that?
Exactly. And that's why one of the sources really stressed the importance of actively building what they called a cultural bank
A cultural bank. I like that.
and really immersing yourself in English language media,
Watching movies.
watching movies,
Listening to music.
listening to music,
Reading books.
following memes,
All of it.
following memes. All of it contributes to that cultural understanding.
So it's not just about studying grammar rules.
Right. It's about experiencing the culture.
It's about living the language.
Living the language.
And one of the sources even mention a free guide
Oh, yeah.
that they put together with common cultural phrases.
That's a great resource.
Yeah, I'll make sure to link to that in the show notes.
Yes, definitely.
So if you hear a phrase like, "It's not my cup of tea,"
Right.
and you're not sure what it means,
It's okay to ask.
it's okay to...
Most people are happy to explain.
Yeah.
And the more you expose yourself to these cultural nuances,
Yeah.
the more those confusing conversations will suddenly start to make sense.
Right. It's like you're unlocking a secret code.
Exactly.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
So just to recap,
Yes.
we've talked about embracing unscripted content,
Yes.
listening to a variety of accents,
Absolutely.
cultivating that skill of anticipation,
That's key.
decoding those linked words and dropped sounds, mastering those contractions and reductions.
Don't be afraid to use them.
Don't be afraid to use them.
Yeah.
Getting comfortable with incomplete sentences.
That's a big one.
And of course, building your cultural knowledge.
It's all connected.
It is. And it's important to remember that this is a journey.
Yes.
It's not going to happen overnight.
It takes time.
It takes practice.
It takes patience.
So don't get discouraged.
Don't get discouraged.
If you don't understand everything right away,
Right.
just keep practicing.
Just keep practicing.
Keep listening.
Keep listening.
Keep immersing yourself.
And you will get there.
You will get there.
Absolutely.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on.
Okay.
How might becoming more attuned to the rhythm and the cultural nuances of English unlock new levels of understanding and connection in your interactions with native speakers?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Or maybe just reflect on which of these strategies really resonated with you
Right.
and which ones you might want to try out in your own language learning journey.
I love that.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been fun.
It's been a blast.
It has.
Until next time.
See ya.